Доброе утро. Это Nobel Vision, открытые инновации 2.0. И напоминаю, что вы можете написать потенциальному инвестору или партнеру и договориться о встрече. Чтобы это сделать, откройте раздел «Участники», настройте фильтры и выберите собеседника. Но сначала проверьте, стоит ли во вкладке «Чаты» в вашем личном кабинете галочка напротив «Хочу общаться с участниками». Поставьте ее, если вы хотите общаться с участниками. Если вы ни с кем не хотите общаться, уберите эту галочку. И отправляйте сообщение спикерам с помощью кнопки «Задать вопрос» во время нашей сессии. Также не забудьте поделиться своим мнением в комментариях и оценить выступление. Но мы продолжаем. Всех нас терзают вопросы, как будет развиваться пандемия. У нас все получается новые витки, новые штаммы появляются. Когда она закончится, будет ли повторяться и как долго будет повторяться? Где ждать взлеты и падения экономики? Что станет приоритетом после
economy, what our priorities will be. So it's my pleasure to invite to the stage Kirill Ignatyev, chair of the board Russian investments, so русские инвестиции, in order to hear some predictions from him. Good morning, dear friends.
Сейчас вам покажу небольшую
Right now, I would like to show you a short presentation. I'm a Russian futurologist. We, for over 10 years, have been working on a number of projects. We've been working with technological prognosis and also technological aspects regarding our economic development. So we interviewed quite a number of experts in different areas. And right now, it's like trend watching. This project, and so this is something that allows us to dig deeper into different matters in order to have the big picture regarding what is actually happening right now in our world. So right now I would like to proceed to your questions to this important notorious issue, pandemic, which is quite a complicated thing. It is also the case for me. Here, if we talk about, for example, 10 meters a little bit below, when 2 years ago nobody knew this world, coronavirus, I made a suggestion that biggest threats we would be exposed to and something that could be really harmful for a number of people is just some diseases. So it was prior to the eruption of this pandemic. This is a discussion that we have with Nikos Postrum during the Open Innovations Forum, and unfortunately that prediction came true. That is all that I can see. The whole world suffered from the pandemic. I also lost some family members. Still, let's just make a short insight and think about all those times when that prediction was made. Sometimes I compare pandemic to global wars or world wars because pandemic claimed victims of a lot of people. Over 9 million people died from the disease, and according to the official statistics, yes, officially 5,300,000 people actually died. But of course, these statistics reflect the so-called first lethal outcome. But at the same time, at the global level, statistics do not take into consideration all the other cases, specifically when now we have a PCR test, and the situation is a little bit different right now. And of course, we use this test in order to judge about actually the situation with the pandemic. So 9 million we are talking about. This is a figure estimated by experts. But I think, in fact, that, at least no less than 9 people fell victims of the pandemic. And I think that this figure will achieve the threshold of 10 million people. I would say that this is something in between regarding the results, so to speak, of the First World War and Second World War. So I would say that it would be a little bit premature to talk about the ends of the pandemic. It's too early to talk about the ends of the pandemic, and I think that right now we make reference more to periods after lockdown.
So now if we discuss the situation after lockdowns, though you know that in some countries we still have lockdowns, so they still continue. And I would like to now make 12 big forecasts for the future, especially for 2020s, that can reflect my vision of how the situation is going to develop in the future. When we fought the pandemic, we made a few mistakes, and I think there were the three most severe mistakes. So we hoped that the epidemics will finish, we'll have just summer or winter. And after it, not only the lockdown stopped, but the pandemic stops in general. But we saw the global spread of a lot of new strains. We didn't have the correct forecast of the term of the pandemic, but also the beginning of the pandemic, mainly scientists said that you cannot be sick with coronavirus 2 times, and then there will be the collective immunity of those who were sick and also of the vaccinated. We can see that new strains overcome these barriers, and the world just calmed down for 6-7 months after the first vaccines appeared at successful platforms such as Moderna, Pfizer, and Sputnik. And so it also slowed down the developments in other spheres. It was also a mistake. So my first forecast out of the 12 that I would like to share with you is that the pandemic will continue until the middle of the 2020s, 2027. And the mechanism of the future development of the pandemic is in our next forecast. The second forecast, the effect of getting used to COVID-19. It will be formed with the connection with the genetic association with the virus and human genome. We discussed it already some time ago. Now that scientists say that the new strain Omicron contains the elements of the genome of people. So this interconnection that appeared on the genetic level, it has the answer to many questions about how COVID-19 can develop in the future. So this concept of getting used to COVID-19 will be the basis of what we used to call the collective immunity. So COVID will not kill so many people, but it will be adapted to our body. It will mutate because it will connect with the genome of people and it will then weaken. So my third forecast is that COVID will disappear. It will disappear in 2020 and will leave some symptoms and the consequences of this in the segment of the acute respiratory infections. First of all, as a regress to the lungs and to the cardiac system and the changes in the work of the immune system. So there will be this regress, but COVID will disappear. Why? Because it will happen because of this interabsorption and the adaptation of people to virus that just started to form. So this process is not very fast. So that's why the forecast that COVID will disappear is that it will not disappear next year, not in 2023, but as the practice showed, even when we use very active weapons against COVID, but still this process will take quite a lot of times, months and years. So we make a forecast about the continuation of the pandemic until the middle of 2020s. So the fight with COVID to reach this victory, and then we will need much more weapons than the weapon that we use nowadays. So nowadays we have effective vaccines. However, in my opinion, it's not enough to speed up the victory over COVID-19. The new versions of vaccines of successful platforms should be implemented faster. So any bureaucracy that is also connected with the clinical trials and the certification of the successful platforms, it means the increase of the number of deaths. So that's why the world really needs to go to the instant production and the release of new versions of vaccines against coronavirus that are adapted to Omicron strain and the possible mutations of coronavirus. So pharma and genetics should help with this success and then should simplify the severe consequences of this disease. I think that the next big hype after the vaccine appears on the market, then it's first of all the appearance of new ways to increase human immunity, work with immunity, and fight for the immunity that is mostly adapted to the developing and constantly changing coronaviruses in its different strains. So the immunal tools and the fight for the immunity is a very important thing. I can tell you that the medical statistics shows that people who increase their immunity, so those people who took immunoglobulins after they found Zwick in them, so they were not sick with COVID in the first month. So this very strong community can create the protective barrier and can create the basis so that the science can think about other questions, not only about just one direction in working with immunity, like formation of antibodies that can be formed with the genome. So let's move on, and now let's discuss not the medical part of the question, but the social part of the question connected with the consequences of COVID-19. So there are some evident things that we had, like remote work, like some restrictions that we had at the market because of the spread of COVID-19. So mostly they sped up the process of mass acceptance of the internet culture. The bureaucratic culture that was a leader in the state management and the management of corporations since the start of big corporate business. So it was at the beginning of the 19th century, and for the first time it changes revolutionary for a new culture that is first of all connected with the internet. The internet culture then replaces the traditional culture, and I think that for the first time after 1990 there will be a global change of the generation of management. So for 2020s, I think that we do not just have the technological revolution. It already happened. So 2020 is a future implementation of its victories and of the results. However, in 2020s, we expect not the technological revolution, but the management revolution, because for the first time, the management of business, corporate business, will have something new, so something that was formed on the principle of the spread of the internet culture, the generation of managers, of leaders, of those people who are heads not only of the institutes but also of the societies. I think that it's a very important consequence. It will last for all 2020s, and this change will happen to the end of 2020s. So I think the situation is very similar to 1990s, when everywhere the generation of management was changed. We got new leaders, young leaders, and they, so to say, corrected the state and the companies and organizations, and they manage even until now. Till the recent time, there will be the change of the management culture. I think it's a very important consequence that now was sped up by COVID. Besides the pandemic, there will be also an influence of other processes on the change of generations. So there is the growth of traditionalism, and this traditionalism will be increased maybe in the nearest future. Maybe it will be connected with the results of the elections in key countries. There will be, for example, elections in France, and maybe more traditionalist forces will win there. There can be very similar processes at other markets, social markets. So this growth of traditionalism will speed up the other direction that will reach the society in the middle of 2020s as a reverse reaction. So there will be a change of the generation who are evangelists of the internet culture. So this turbulence and instability that we had, so the threat of cold conflicts and military conflicts and the competition with China, the increase of turbulence in Africa and Southeastern Asia. So all these consequences will be in the conflict with the modern values that most people on the earth have, mostly in advanced civilized countries. So it will also influence the new generation that will become leaders, not only in politics and public life, but also in the society. But now we live in the format of the economy of societies, because the communications has changed. So the next forecast, the seventh forecast, the forecast of customized state. So we see here a new global strategy of the change of the management in countries. What is the essence of this strategy? It is that for the first time when the economy of the societies appeared, there will be the change of the approach that will just change this basis that were formed, and that was the basis for the theory of the state and right. Let's remember this code of Napoleon that was formed for the central bureaucratic state, for the right of the regime for the business, and formed the civil right for business, and that most of the systems based on what is the difference of the customized management. So it has the difference of the interests of different societies. So the law is the same for everyone. So I think that it will be doubt about it. And of course, we will not have the same frameworks everywhere, the same rules. And the implementation of the same management will become a hype. So there are very serious and polar views of social groups, and when we created such a technology as a detector fly, the mobile phone, we asked different groups of people, and people of the mature age, they said it's terrible, it destroys the private life, secret, but then teenagers who were 15, 16 years old, they said it's a very good service, and that helps not to lie, so it will protect from the lie, and the society will become more honest. So these were absolutely different points of view. We cannot actually evaluate who was right, because it's just different, fundamentally different positions. We will need different management for different positions. So I think that not only in business, but also that is already the system of customized state, but also in our public relations. We will also go to the customized state. Focus number 8. So in 2020, we will have a new crisis. It will be a more classical one in its economic model, because the raw material markets are too heated up. You can see what happens with oil and gas industry. We can see that the eco trend speeds up the transfer to the new energy. We can see in 2020 we start to use the electric transport, and it is the main consumer of the hydrogen. And we understand that 1930s, the big car companies will just stop use the fuel and diesel transport. It will be a kind of vintage transport, and that's why we understand that many industries will not have enough time to adapt to this big energy change, and the prices will fall down, the demand will fall down, and so I expect that this basis, the appearance, independently of the development of COVID-19, the appearance of a new economic crisis. So focus number 9, very often they ask me where we will have the fast capitalization. We saw the fast capitalization of Tesla, the increase and decrease of Bitcoin courses, and as a futurologist, I would like to say that in these 6 spheres I can see the faster customization. So it's the customization of economics on the demand. So the whole market is now on the demand. The whole market works like this, and here we have a lot of services, also the service of communication, social services, social contacts and social inquiries for the video streaming and communication. And this is also the commerce with customized products. So as a perspective, we can move forward to the customized food and pharmacy. These are globally very big markets. So I think that the fast capitalization will happen in space. We will start with very fast space transport. I think that at the end of 2020, we can send to intercontinental travel not dozens of people, but hundreds of people. Of course, in space we'll have a lot of strategic developments that will reveal for us new worlds and maybe for the experiment. And in the future it can be very interesting because it will also the supply of energy from the space and bringing of dangerous industries there, utilization of the waste and the production that is possible only in the vacuum, and as a perspective the development of moon orbit, and then some fossils that we can mine, and then we can go to the space. So all these, of course, is an R&D sphere that will happen in 2020s. Of course, anthroponomics, I think that the future is anthroponomics. Everything that is true for the health industry, for the safety and the comfort of people, all these will increase, and here we will have a lot of interesting projects and startups. I think that biotech in food is also very important. And the NECA trends will have the synthesized meat and maybe synthesized fish in reactor. And I don't mean the plant, I mean some synthetic food that is based on the technology that are known in pharma, that are used in the food industry. Then we can have meat without killing people. This is also very big hype. And then microenergetics will also increase, and it will be just very close to us, so there will be quite clear technologies of thermal pumps, of those that use different temperature. So to be implemented in our normal air conditioners, it's necessary to have a breakthrough that interconnect with the systems of autonomous heating without the connection with the current, and then the reverse sales back to it when we can then sell the charge of our accumulator. So it's our new gadget, our new personal devices, and these are also the chips that can be used, very small energetic carriers that help us to examine the human body. And the last area that is also very important, or the future breakthrough, this is the ecological technology. Ecotech, it's also very big hype. I think that this process will speed up and speed up. We have a lot of examples here, including the factories for catching CO2 and some personalized solutions connected with clear economy. So then focus number 10, it's a more long-term focus. It's important for the understanding of how our business will develop. I think that in the middle of the century, we will see that the new technological elements will crash the corporate world and change it a lot. Now the main way of monetization is the promotion and share in the companies. We discuss the share and we quote our shares, so we make money at the exchange rate. And this is the main monetization, the biggest monetization at the modern markets. So I think that in the future, the appearance of smart contracts about the participation in this or that business and the fixing in blockchains, then the immediate monetization, where they just paid for the goods, for the service, or for an emotion, or for the audience. So this will be a moment when immediately the money is spread. This moment of monetization will become an immediate one. It will be brought to the point of selling, so a point of payment for the service, for the emotion, or for the rating, and not for the capitalization of the corporate market. So in this sense, we'll have the system and the corporate business will not be necessary. The world will have another type of organization. This is my focus number 10. Focus number 11 changes that in 2020s will have an impact on our everyday life. Let's analyze it. First of all, the cash will disappear. It will be the full end of the paper age. Then the access to the site of another person. And then the appearance to new gadget with an access to the internet. The use of the perfect translation into the earphones. It will all change the communication. There will be access to the site of another person. That will be a new format for social networks, and then the next format that will have the translation of the oral communication. And it will change our international communication, the communication of people globally.
And we have a number of social impacts, specifically when we will be using these technologies more intensely. Also, we talk about different technologies, that we can use for increasing lifespan. This is use of biomedicine, use of microchips, also work with genome, with stem cells. Well, use stem cells. I have already mentioned that. So also medicine personalization and also use of special mTOR protein and insulin receptors for actually boosting the lifespan and average lifespan of people. Also, it can be used for the fight against dementia. Well, they are already used. Well, at least they will also be tested at the technological level, and correspondingly, we will be able to also have an idea about average lifespan. And of course, it is inevitably on a regular basis exposed to a number of lifespan. And we know because of COVID, it has been decreasing. Then the prediction number 12, the biggest global risk that could actually change quite a positive technological development paradigm is the so-called climatic tsunami. For example, if we have, for example, volcanic eruption, global volcanic eruption, first it will lead to a temperature decrease. We will be covered with ashes, and it will prevent the planet from receiving sun rays. Then it will lead to some climatic changes. Well, in total, we have approximately 20 volcanoes of such a scale or size. So if it happens, then against this dramatic climatic changes, we will be exposed to real losses. And also, permafrost could be another risk for us. It has already happened here on this planet. Or global warming, it's also quite a problem right now, something that we have long been struggling to minimize. I hope that it will not happen anytime soon, but if it happens, then it could change the whole technological development paradigm. And just to finalize, I would like to show you a number of slides, what you can actually do in the 21st century, what could be added up on top of governmental actions to fight against all those problems. I think that right now time is ripe to have more money with the help of Russian corporate business that could be allocated for some new businesses. Well, of course, so far startups have been actively supported, and initially when we had this inflow of funds and grants, still it was linked to a number of complexities because the structure was not that transparent. And by the way, those activities were also organized here within Skolkovo as well. I know that right now people have to work a lot remotely. We have a completely new approach to business. We work with, different new domains. And now we have, by the way, more time to think about new startups, business. And now against this pandemic, we need more money in form of just simple loans or credits allocated for business, and also it can be also done with the help of business support. So also we need to really cut down on obvious bureaucracy, and also think about outsourcing. As for companies, I think that in the future, companies will be more willing to work with self-employed people, and there on the payroll they will have no more than 4,000 people, for example. When people actually work in the company, physically go there every day, and so they're not that motivated, it's no longer efficient. It's just like previously when we had state economy, etc., in the business in Soviet times. So again, it cannot be used to boost efficiency. We also need to work with different cities. Moscow is changing, other cities are not changing so quickly. We need to position them as cyber parks. So on one hand, it should include these components, cyber technologies, etc. At the same time, it should be organized in forms of park. I think that, against this rapid digitalization could happen by 2025. And by the way, a lot of people right now are ready to say no to cash. And, if also such efforts are supported by the government, it could really make a difference. So we need to think more about rapid transport. It's very important for efficient development. We also need to also reject probably some visas. Of course, there should be some control at the borders, and not everybody can actually enter the country, we understand. But as for entry visas, it could allow some experts and really skilled, talented people join our labor markets. We also need to think about some internet culture. We also need to work with this kind of approach other than technocrats. We also need to cut down or fully reject barriers in the sphere of experimental technologies. So if it happens in the near future in Russia, then it could lead to a real technological breakthrough. And the last thesis, I think that considering the country of our country, if we delegate a number of powers from Moscow to the so-called new cities or city of the future, it could become a real challenge, but it could allow us to have a very intense technological development. For example, Valdai, between Moscow and St. Petersburg, we could have such residences, such clusters. Thank you very much, dear friends.
Вопросы?
Do you have any questions?
Выступления наших спикеров в разделе Live.
You can actually do that and address your questions in our special section called Live. You will be certain scores for that, and also awards for active participation. State your participation as productive as possible, and also schedule some live meetings. You can choose an expert and also choose not speaker but also a time slot, and so then you will be able to have a very interesting discussion with them.
транспортно-логистический холдинг «Российские железные дороги». Мы развиваем транспортную инфраструктуру страны, строим новые станции, вокзалы и создаем новые возможности для вашего бизнеса. Лучшие скоростные и высокоскоростные поезда сделают ваше путешествие комфортным и безопасным. Мы – локомотив экономики. Сотни миллионов тонн грузов ежегодно. Развитие науки и социальной сферы – это наш вклад в благосостояние страны и ваша уверенность в завтрашнем дне.
Я новая Hyundai Creta. Hyundai.
Есть история фантастическая. Есть история сказочная. Есть страшная история. А есть история реальная. Юка всегда реальная история и диагностика автомобилей с пробегом. Юка – официальный сервис Hyundai. Смотрите историю и диагностику автомобиля и покупайте его онлайн.
If you want to stay ahead of the competition, you need the most advanced solutions to transform your comms performance. From media database to social influencers, distribution to monitoring, analytics to insights, Cision's cloud-based tools can help you communicate like never before.
Звонки ВКонтакте для работы. Больше никаких ограничений по времени и платных функций. Звонки ВКонтакте — это разговор